I'm all wired up. Yeah, hopefully. I forgot to reread the questions right ahead of time, but that's okay. Yeah. I hope so. Sure, sure. My name's Earle, and I am the director of the Center for Diabetes Services at California Pacific Med Center. I'm also the chief of endocrinology at CPMC, and I'm the president of the San Francisco Bay Area Leadership Board for American Diabetes Association. Yeah. Does this sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
From a public health perspective, what would help patients help manage their diabetes better?
I think the key to managing diabetes is knowledge. So particularly with diabetes, it's a disease where the more you know, the better you can manage your diabetes. So I think it's knowledge that's given to you by diabetes educators, by support groups, by your physician, by your family, to just really educate yourself on what the goals are for diabetes, where your blood sugar should be, what's a dangerous blood sugar, and how to manage it with different medicines and insulins.
What's your view about the plight of diabetes today, both in the U.S. and globally?
So diabetes is a huge epidemic, and that's why I'm so excited about World Diabetes Day, because it brings light to this big problem that is diabetes. Here in the U.S., we've got almost 24 million Americans with diabetes, and if you look at certain percentages of our population, it's even higher. So if we look at people over the age of 60, it's 20% of those people with diabetes, and certain ethnic groups also have very high rates of diabetes. And because this is escalating so quickly, it's really reaching epidemic proportions. So the latest statistics I heard was that the rates for new onset diabetics diagnosed within the last couple years as compared to 10 years ago has nearly doubled. So this disease is getting increasing in numbers, both here in the US and internationally.
Can you tell us what your best advice for healthcare providers is, given all the incredible demands on their time, such as limited resources for fighting diabetes?
Primary care doctors have a really tough job, and because I've just told you that 24 million Americans have diabetes, and it's 7.8% of the total population, there's no way that all of these people with diabetes can be managed by an endocrinologist. And so a lot of the burden for management of diabetes is placed on the primary care provider. And so most primary care doctors, they've got 15 minutes for a follow-up appointment, and they have to not just manage the blood sugars, but the blood pressure and the cholesterol, and they have to screen for eye disease and kidney disease and nerve disease, and it's just impossible to do in this 15-minute time period. And so these primary care doctors have such a tough job. And I think the important thing is to really keep in close contact with your patients, to know when to send them to diabetes education. So diabetes centers, diabetes educators are great resources to kind of help manage the patients when you don't have enough time to sort of go over all those points. And then when things are really beyond control, to go ahead and refer to a specialist. That's all they get, 15 minutes. It's not good.
How is diabetes different from what might have been expected 10 to 20 years ago?
One thing that's really exciting about diabetes is that we have a lot of new things to offer patients with diabetes that have just come out within the past 10 years. I'd say one area of focus has been diabetes medication. So we have some fantastic new diabetes medications, both for type 1 diabetics that need new insulin, so these insulin analogs that work even better than old-fashioned insulins, and newer medications that have different benefits over some of the older medications. So some of them are safer for patients with kidney problems or have a better side effect profile. So we've got some really exciting new medicines. And then we've also got this other side to diabetes, which is diabetes technology. So diabetes is relying on technology for really two areas, and one would be blood sugar monitoring and one would be insulin administration. So in terms of blood sugar monitoring, the blood sugar monitors are so much better now than they were just 10 years ago. They're faster, they hardly require any blood. It's not just on the fingertip, it can be in other sites, which is a real advantage for our patients. We even have some new technology that will sense blood sugars and check blood sugars every 5 minutes. So these are called continuous glucose sensors or continuous glucose monitors. And what they do is you get a little electrode that's inserted into the interstitial space, and it sends a blood sugar measurement every 5 minutes to a receiver. And so for patients that have big swings in terms of highs and lows in their blood sugar, this is really amazing technology for them. In terms of insulin delivery, we've got new insulin pens, which make the old-fashioned syringe and vial look really outdated. And then we've got really sophisticated insulin pumps, which infuse continuous supplies of insulin for patients who need insulin. So I think technology has really helped patients manage the disease. Yeah.
What are the biggest barriers people with diabetes face today?
It's funny because diabetes is such a common disease, and yet people with diabetes are still having problems in terms of getting adequate protection at school or at work. And so I think, for kids, it's barriers about getting the care that they needed, the help giving them the insulin when they're at school. I don't actually see kids, I only see adults, but I'm still faced with problems. So I have several patients that require insulin and can no longer do their jobs once they're on insulin. So if you're a public transportation driver or a truck driver, or I have a patient who is a pilot who just got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, it's really devastating because I had to not just tell him he's got a chronic disease, but that he can no longer do the job that he's been doing for the past 15 years. And so there's still a lot of problems for people that get this diagnosis.
Where do you think we will be 10 years from now in terms of diabetes prevalence globally?
Hard question, but it's going to be everywhere. I mean, and it's funny because the U.S. certainly our numbers are increasing every year, and there's other countries that are following close behind us in terms of the diabetes prevalence. So I think it's only going to increase unless we, as Americans, as world citizens, really decide that we're going to try to make some big changes in our lifestyle to combat this disease. And when I say lifestyle changes, I mean getting out and exercising, watching our diet, and helping our kids in school get exercise and watch their diet. But I'm afraid that unfortunately right now, unless we make some big changes, we're going to keep seeing this doubling of diabetes every 10 years.
How can we do more to prevent diabetes?
So prevention of diabetes, I think, all gets back to education that we were talking about in the beginning. So education is so key for both treatment of diabetes and prevention of diabetes. And so the best time to find a patient is when they have prediabetes. So before they've crossed over the threshold to diabetes, but where we know there's some problems in the way their body handles sugars and carbohydrates. And these patients, if they get a lot of education about diet, exercise, and lifestyle and weight loss, we can actually prevent them from ever developing diabetes. And so that's really a population that I'd love to target: more education, more understanding of what it is to be healthy and prevent diabetes. So that's sort of an area I would really love to spend more effort on.